This is Inspirational Women, a weekly series shining the spotlight on female trailblazers making a true difference in our community. Once again, here is Kate Daniels.
My guest is Carrie Rickert, a consultant and coach, and the author of the book Trauma is a Catalyst. Each of us typically suffers or will suffer some kind of trauma. It's helpful to hear others' perspectives to consider what it might mean in our own life. Carrie Rickert, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us today.
Good morning, Kate. Thank you so much for having me.
I am grateful that we are able to have this conversation because you've written this book called Trauma is a Catalyst, where you tell us about a traumatic car accident that you survived and what it's done for you. That was over 11 or nearly 11 years ago now, right?
Yeah, almost 11 years.
So here you are, nearly 11 years later, with a book speaking to us, we'll share some of the experiences and the discoveries and what can be done in our life. And certainly because life is what it's all about, being able to learn how to navigate and make the best of things is so critical to us. And you have done this in such an amazing and really a very dramatic, I'm thinking it's a dramatic kind of situation. So mentioning Trauma is a Catalyst, your book, the trauma you experienced, I was mentioning there was a car accident. Would you say that was the instrumental thing in making this turn, this change in your life?
Yeah, I would say so. I have always generally been a fairly positive person, but I think having such a traumatic experience, and just to give a little context to that, with that car accident resulted in a traumatic brain injury. My hand had to be completely reconstructed. I lost the hearing in my left ear and lots of other things. And so I would say that, my positive attitude helped me get through that time, but I think I learned so much about who I am, the strengths that I have, and the just sheer number of people who love and care about me. And those are things that I wouldn't have learned without this accident.
And in that experience, then, it brings the awareness of how there is such value of that in our lives and to nurture it. Whereas if you think of yourself as not having gone through such a trauma, and I mean, that's not the desirable thing, but to find really important life lessons that you can then share with others who will take the time to read, who will listen, as to how to get to that point without having to necessarily have a serious accident occur.
Yeah. So, and that is a good reason why I wrote my book, is because I really wanted people who have experienced traumatic things to realize that they aren't alone. Because a lot of times people don't talk about their traumas because they don't want pity or they don't want other people to look at them differently. I mean, it took me a long time to be like, yeah, I had a brain injury. I mean, I was trying to get myself back on track, and people look at someone who has a brain injury and go, maybe we don't want to work with them, or any other thing, right? So being able to share my story with other people has really, I think the idea behind it is to give people the permission to talk about their experiences and to feel like they aren't alone and that there is a spark of hope out there.
So that encouragement is definitely important. I would hope that anyone and everyone would embrace that, but yet in making the comment about reaching out this way, are there people, do you feel, have you experienced that just shut down? It's like, leave me alone. I'm just going to live in my own little world, this little box, shut off from everyone else. How does one get to inspire and change that for people?
So, that's interesting because I remember at one point while I was in the hospital and I was doing a lot of rehab, and the occupational therapist and the physical therapist and the speech therapist, they all love to come and work with me. And they would add extra time for me. So we finish our sessions and they're like, we'll come back later. And it wasn't because I was due to have another session. So I remember asking my mom, I'm like, I don't understand why they keep coming back to me. And my mom said they like working with someone who is trying to actively get better. A lot of people who have had brain injuries kind of succumb to the depression that is often associated with that and don't have the will to work hard in their therapies, because having a brain injury is really scary and it's exhausting and it changes who you are fundamentally, particularly if you have defined yourself by your career or your intelligence or whatever. So I think that my hope is that people will, even people who have struggled, will have someone in their lives that can say, hey, have you listened to this or have you read this? Maybe this will give you a little bit of hope for your future.
Yes, that would definitely be the hope for anyone, regardless where you are on the spectrum of recovery. And even someone who has not had a traumatic brain injury, but has had some other condition, or maybe we just haven't had any real challenges, but we can always, I feel, grow from this and have a greater understanding for ourselves and inspiration, but perhaps be able to be more empathetic and help others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, I think that so many people don't know how to approach somebody who has had a traumatic experience. I mean, I remember people who I had counted as really good friends were terrified to interact with me after my accident because they were afraid that I was not the same person. And that's a valid fear. And also, that did me a big disservice. People need other people in their lives that are willing to support them and be compassionate despite feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So I think that my book can serve in that way also, in, here are the experiences that I've had, and here's what really helped me and the interactions that helped me. Maybe there's somebody in your life that could use that kind of support and help.
Right. Looking at your sharing how you were going through all the therapies and you were really determined, and this made the therapeutic team really happy to work with you, that doesn't mean that it was necessarily easy or fun for you, though, does it?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Not at all. It was a struggle every day. I mean, and there were days that I didn't want to get out of bed, but I had 2 little kids at home. They were 8 and 4 at the time, and I wanted to be the best mom I could be. And I knew that if I didn't put in the effort while I was at the hospital and had all of the resources at my hands, then I wouldn't be the best mom possible for them.
Right. So that, I feel, is really critical. It's not going to be easy, not going to be fun, but there needs to be this determination. And your children certainly were a big impetus, and I feel that can be true for so many. I need to, if not for myself, I need to do it for them.
Right. And I would say it was a mixture of both, right?
Yes.
I wanted to get better. I wanted to be the best version of me that I could be, not just for them, but for myself as well. But certainly the kids were always a guiding light for me.
Right. And they, at that age, they're going to understand very differently what happened. But your family were able to just keep them engaged and let them know what was going on. I mean, they knew as much as they were able to handle at the time.
Yes, absolutely. So I had literally several months prior to the accident, I had separated from their father. So my kids went through a lot of turmoil in a very short period of time. because they had to learn how to live in two houses. And then they had to be basically without their mother for 6 weeks and not really knowing what was happening. Now, my ex-husband did a great job caring for them, making sure they were surrounded with people who could care for them when he was at work and other things. My mom and dad and his parents and he all talked to the kids together and were incredibly supportive to my children. And when I looked mostly like me, they brought the kids to visit me, and, that bolstered all of us.
And that really is an important piece of it, that going through a separation, ultimately a divorce, that has a lot of potentially negative kinds of feelings around it. But it seems like everyone was being mature about this, being adult about this, and really looking to just be supportive of the children, but also the adults as well. And you, as you suffered.
Yes, absolutely. I will say I give my ex-husband a lot of credit. We were still technically married when I had the accident, so he had power of attorney. And he immediately signed it over to my mother, who is a retired rehab and ICU nurse. So she was perfectly poised to be my advocate. And he made sure that our kids were surrounded by love and had people that they could feel safe and comfortable with. So I'm not going to say that our divorce was always rosy. It certainly wasn't. But in that time of struggle, we all took the high road.
Yes, the high road. And that's so important to consider when there are these extra challenges that come in. And that's why I feel it's valuable in your sharing your story, writing the book Trauma is a Catalyst, in being able to bring that forward. So hopefully it at least plants seeds in people's minds, in their hearts, to live this way as well.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I think I learned a lot about how to show people love by how I was shown love and support during my very difficult time. And that is such an invaluable lesson. And I know that I am incredibly lucky because I had a very deep support system. And I know that there are people out there that don't have the family and friends that can be so deeply supportive. But there are advocates out there, there are organizations out there that can be supportive. And I think so much of the time we work so hard to fix the immediate problem, which of course is necessary when you're at a place like University of Maryland Shock Trauma, which is where I was. And I think sometimes it gets lost that when you leave the hospital, you need support too.
Oh, definitely. I would hope people would know that. But now that you're saying that, I guess maybe that's not the case. They feel, oh, you came out of the hospital, so everything must be fine. But it wasn't. You needed to make still some major changes in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I first got out of the hospital, my parents had to actually live with me and the kids for a bit because when you have a brain injury, they don't just give you your driver's license back and say, have at it. You have to retest. So I had no vehicle because that was totaled, and I also didn't have a driver's license. And I only had one working arm at the time. So I needed a lot of help. But I think what I also really needed, and it was not something that my family or friends could necessarily provide, was the kind of support that you get from other people who have had similar experiences or traumatic experiences of their own. I mean, that's not to say that my experience wasn't traumatic for my family. It was, but there was a lot of skin in the game there. I needed some outside perspective. I needed to hear from other people who had survived such things and got through it, even if they struggled along the way, right? And I think that there are resources out there, and I think we don't really know about them. And, certainly when I left the hospital, I was so grateful just to be leaving the hospital. Somebody could have told me about support groups and things like that, and I didn't remember any of that. And it wasn't until much later that I realized the sheer number of resources that are available. So I'm hoping that my book helps shed some light on that as well. Like, there are places to get support if you aren't comfortable talking to family and friends. Or even if you are comfortable talking to your family and friends and you need a little bit more, there are places for support. Your hospital has those resources available. They can tell you what they are and they can share them with you. It's a phone call.
And it's really important, I would feel, that everyone is an individual. And so that journey may definitely be different, so that if someone took a shorter time needing to have support, great, but not to feel that you have to adhere to someone else's timeline and agenda.
Absolutely not. And there are times when you think, oh, yeah, I am rocking it. I am doing so well. Things are going really great. I'm feeling good. And then one day you feel like you've been run over by a truck because you are so physically and mentally exhausted and you don't know why. And that sometimes comes back. Like, even now, almost 11 years later, I can be going along, doing great, everything's going well, and then boom, I'm like, whoa, I have not felt this level of tired in a very long time. And at almost 11 years out, the family and friends aren't expecting that I would ever struggle anymore. You know, they've seen me be successful. I'm not struggling. And reality is we all struggle at different times from our experiences, right? And it's important to know where you can get the support that you need. And, you know, one of my biggest lessons in all of this was I had to actually ask for help, and I've never been particularly good at that. I'm the independent sort, and I had no choice. I had to ask for help. There were things that I could not do. And while I have kind of gone back in my independent ways a bit, there are times when I'm like, okay, you know what? I just need help, and that is okay. It's okay to need help. And I think that that's not a cultural message in this country, that it's okay to need help.
Isn't that interesting? Because I think we like to help. So there is a disconnect there in being able to
Absolutely.
ask for help versus we do want to. I'm happy when someone asks that I be involved in something. So, yes, it's good to remind people and to then be the leader, Carrie, in doing it yourself. Be that model.
Yeah. And I think also for family and friends that want to be supportive, instead of saying, you know, let me know if you need help, saying instead, like, hey, I was thinking I could do this for you. Would that be helpful?
Yes.
You know, so it bridges the family member who wants to help someone who's had a traumatic experience, and the person who's had the traumatic experience doesn't want to ask for help, but they desperately need it. It allows both individuals to feel like they're getting what they need.
Yes. That is so important. I recently was speaking with a caregiver who was saying something very similar, that as a caregiver, don't ask me what it is I need help with. That just adds another level of work to me. Offer.
Yeah.
You know, I'll take your kids to soccer practice. I'll bring you a meal. Yes, offering those kinds of things.
Yeah, and that's helpful. But as people get further out, you know, we all have short memories. And so, you know, people see someone like me who is doing incredibly well despite all of my circumstances and don't immediately think, oh, wow, she might need some help. So, you know, there is that combination of you've got to learn how to ask when you need it because people can't read your mind.
Yes. Yes, we've not accomplished that yet, have we, in all of our advances?
Yeah, we think we should be able to.
Yeah. So a very critical thing there that you've shared with us, Carrie. In the midst of this, you know, 10 plus years after this traumatic accident, You have obviously made changes. You allude in the book to the fact that, you were thinking you were going to be making a career change. Well, certainly after the accident, that did occur, right?
Yeah, so I had been working for a management consulting firm, and I was working mad hours and commuting an hour each way, and that had to change. I could not keep up with that pace anymore. Mm-hmm. So I ended up starting my own business, and I am still doing some management consulting work, but I also am working to coach people who have had traumatic experiences to help them through those hard times and be supportive.
And what an invaluable gift and service that is, because while there are support groups, to have someone who's experienced this and to be able to really, I think both for the person who has gone through the traumatic injury, but for the family and support group, it's good for them to have your input as a coach.
Yeah, I hope so. My goal is to serve people like me. And I don't mean like me in that they have to have a brain injury, but to serve people who need help getting through the really hard times post-trauma so that they can feel like they are who they are and that feels like a good place to be.
And understanding, because you know that you are different, but different doesn't mean anything negative. You've changed as a result of this, and to embrace that seems to have been important for you, but would be important for any of us.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I certainly, there are down to the cellular level things different about me, right? But also in my ability to let some things go that used to bother me, in my ability to trust that people want to be helpful for me and aren't just doing it because I asked and they feel guilty not doing it, right? So all of these things, I want to be able to give that back. I've been so blessed. This has been and you said this earlier, it has been a horrible experience with a lot of really amazing things that came from it. So even now, 11 years later, I wouldn't change anything.
So isn't that an interesting thing to think about? It was obviously horrific, but you had an amazing medical team, and you had that will, and you had your faith to really persevere, to make the best out of it, to use a cliche thing, making lemonade out of those lemons kind of situation, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned my medical team. I ended up in the absolute perfect place for the types of injuries that I had. I am forever grateful to my doctors and the nurses and really every single person who works at University of Maryland Shock Trauma. They all have such a vital role in helping to heal people. And so I was incredibly lucky with that. And I was incredibly lucky that I had family and friends supporting me from near and far. And my prognosis was significantly worse than what turned out, right? There are times that I think, wow, I am so lucky I even made it out of the car, considering all of the injuries that I had. And so I think that gratitude allows me to want to help other people get there too.
Which, isn't that the beautiful thing about life? The gratitude and then wanting to reach out. It's like the best of what we can be as a human being.
Yes, I think so. And that's what I try to be, the best that I can be.
And it's so evident in our conversation this morning in the fact that you've written this book and really given us so many insights. So it's very obvious that a trauma has really been part of the fabric of your life and you are making the best of it. But as you've worked with people, is there someone or a situation that stands out that really demonstrates this as well?
Yeah, so I will give you an example from I have a podcast. It's called Transformational Trauma and Healing. And in that podcast, I speak to people who have survived trauma. I speak to caregivers. And the entire idea behind that is to bring to light people's experiences in the world that aren't great experiences, but have turned out better than anyone has expected. And they have internal fortitude and gratitude because of that. And I have heard such amazing things from people, like just randomly. I was visiting a friend of mine in Lafayette, Louisiana, and she had given me the name of somebody who she thought I should interview, and I ended up interviewing her. And it was absolutely wonderful. And while I was visiting, somebody else just randomly, like, oh, you know Anne? And I'm like, yeah, I know Anne. I did an interview with her on my podcast. I listened to that podcast. It was the most amazing thing. It felt so good to be able to listen to her story and get hope from that. So like I have been able to speak to so many different people who have had so many different experiences, and their stories have not only touched me, but because I have a public forum, they are able to touch other people who may not feel comfortable talking to somebody one-on-one, but they can get a little nugget of hope by listening to other people's stories.
Oh, keyword stories. In sharing our stories, right? We can just learn so much. We take from it what we need in the moment, and it's so powerful.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, have I learned a ton from every single person I have interviewed. It has just been enlightening.
So, are we able to link to your podcast from your website, Carrie?
Yes, you are. So my website is nomisadvisors.com. That is NOMIS advisors.com. And there is a link there that says podcast. You can also find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, any of those.
How great. And let's mention the name of the podcast again.
Sure. It's Transformational Trauma and Healing.
So we have a podcast. We have this great book. Books still for me are such a great source of information and learning. And so trauma is a catalyst, really describes this, I think, so greatly because so much of it is in the moment. Your mother's experience, then once you're able to write and share, then we have your words and experiences. And of course, the book is available through all of our favorite book sources, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Terrific.
Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, all of those good places.
And if we want to go to our favorite local bookstore, it's not there, ask for it. I think that does not just ourselves a service, but to others as well to make the book present there.
That would be fantastic. Yes, please do that.
Because this is, I feel, all of us in some way, we may have not gone through something catastrophic, but we're all at some stage of having experienced something that is, some level of trauma. And to have your insights and your experiences and encouragement, I feel, can only help to make not just us better, but ultimately make the world better.
Oh, thank you so much. That feels so beautiful that you just said that to me. Thank you.
Well, it's just what came to me and what I feel. And I am really grateful that, of course, you survived all that, but that you're the kind of person who can see the gift in it and want to then share that with others, which is what I trust we've done this morning.
I hope so, indeed. Thank you so much for this, Kate. This has been lovely.
Well, you are so welcome, and I just appreciate your time and wish you continued success connecting with people and making us stronger.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you for being here this morning to meet these wonderful guests, devoted to their own growth and life purpose and desiring to share with others to inspire us. Please check this station's website for the podcasts for more information about these guests, and please share the stories with your family and friends. I'm Kate Daniels. If you'd like to connect with me, simply send me an email, katedaniels@hubbardradio.com. Have an amazing day.
Thank you for listening to Inspirational Women. Tune in every Sunday morning at this time to hear about those truly empowering the Northwest community, all for the greater good. Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women are a public service of Hubbard Radio Seattle.